Okay, we're live and broadcasting on the internet for this Google Hangout on air. And we've got today with us Dr. Harvey Zarren, who is currently in Massachusetts in America. One of the fantastic things about this technology is that we can more or less bring in anyone in from the world so long as they've got an internet connection and a webcam. We've also got Tessa Guy from In Mind in Body. And I know you're very excited today, Tessa, to have Harvey with us on this Hangout. And perhaps you can explain to us why.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Harvey, I've been waiting to meet for some time, and Harvey's done some amazing work, which actually Jan said I must talk to you, Jan Alco, who sent her love, Harvey, this morning, and she said you've been doing some amazing work in the impact that our thoughts can have on our bodies, and how we can change somebody's biology purely through thought. But today I just wanted to understand a little bit more about your work, and I've had a look at, obviously, you look very much into the person's disease to understand the person emotionally and compassionately, so that you can then heal them or help them to start healing themselves. Harvey, would you term it that way?
I would. What I will tell you is I spent 32 years as an active clinical cardiologist. And I left practice not because I was burnt out, but I woke up one morning and said, what else do I wish to do before I die? And when will that be? So I left my practice. I said goodbye personally to 800 patients over 6 months. And I have been doing now a practice which uses what I call healing relationship and clinical hypnosis to change body biology through gene expression. So wow. I can explain to you briefly what I've learned doing this work. I started studying psychoneuroimmunology really in 2001, and then got into the psychobiology of gene expression because of a book by that name, The Psychobiology of Gene Expression, by a wonderful man by the name of Ernest Rossi, R-O-S-S-I. And what we know is that you have 21,000 genes that make the molecules that give you the anatomic and the functional or physiologic experience of being alive. These 21,000 genes make the molecules that allow you to have an anatomy and allow your immune system to function, your brain to function, all of those things to work. The 21,000 genes we've known for a long time only make up 2% of your DNA. 2. And the rest of the DNA has been called junk for many years by science because we didn't know what it did. The reason you only need 21,000 genes is that the molecules that are made can work alone or in clusters. So there's a huge number of biologically active molecules floating around inside of you, expressing themselves in terms of you, how you look, how tall you are, all of those things, and how you function, including the challenges under stress. The rest of the DNA, we didn't know what it was, and Ernie Rossi wrote his book in 2002. In 2003, the University of Southern California in Santa Barbara put together 32 international centers in a consortium to study the junk. And in September of 2012, they published 30 papers showing another 78% of our DNA. And the reason they didn't know the last 20% is that they had only looked at 147 of the 1,000 different human cells, and not every cell has all your DNA. So essentially, 2% makes the molecules that give you the experience of being alive, and the rest of it, it turns out, are switches, on-off switches, and rheostats, dimmers, like to turn the lights up and down, they're volume switches. So on-off switches and rheostats for the 2%. Most of your DNA are control switches for the 2% that makes the stuff that gives you the experience of being alive. It turns out that the pattern of how the switches are set, in part you get at the time of conception from your parents. You get their switch settings when you're conceived. And then you go through the 9 months in utero, during which the switches move, and your brain is forming both anatomically and functionally. And your brain anatomy is not fixed entirely by a map. A lot of it happens, particularly the frontal lobes that modulate feelings and things, happen in utero according to what's going on with your mother. Then you go through the first few years of life where you form what's called attachment or not, and much of the switch settings change then. There's another big surge during adolescence, but you can change your switches. You don't have to be stuck how you are. That means you can modify what genes are turned on and turned off. You're not changing the molecule sequence of the DNA of the 21,000 genes. What you're doing is deciding which ones are making stuff or not. Some of those genes turn stem cells into new brain cells, which you can do your whole life. You can add new brain cells, and some of those genes change the connection between brain cells. Every brain cell is connected to between 2 and 10,000 other brain cells, and it's a mechanical connection called a synapse. It's not an electrical connection like a computer. You can change your brain cells, you can change the connections, you can change which genes are being expressed or turned on to make molecules, so you can change your immune system, your response to challenges and stress. You can change all kinds of things. That's the true biology of hope, is that you don't have to be stuck how you are.
Yeah.
And you can also change your sense of inner safety, which the mental health people say starts with attachment. And inner safety really is, do you get up in the morning and think you can face the challenges of the day? So when I meet with a patient, a new patient, I only do history. I don't do physicals, I don't do tests, I don't write prescriptions. My initial interview history is right now averaging about 5 hours. They run from 3 to 9. And the 9 I will generally split into 2 days. And during that time, I will find out what's going on and what the difficulties are. And we as a species are successful, which means that our design is designed to work. And when the switches don't change spontaneously or through prayer, exercise, healthy nutrition, whatever, generally something's in the way. And part of the reason to take such extensive history is to figure out what's in the way and help people move it.
And Harvey, do you find that people are totally honest with you? Because obviously it's going to be emotional honesty that holds the key to this.
At the end of 5 hours of very clear, connected, caring, eye-to-eye contact questions, letting them tell their story often for the very first time, the answer is yes. They're honest at the end, certainly. Yeah. And I can tell you that I have a niche with all this. I do work with cancer patients. I've run a cancer support group every week since 1993 called Healing with Hope. But most of my work is with people who have physical complaints, no test has shown anything, and no treatment has worked.
Okay.
And people are getting well. And they're getting well. They're not taking stuff with this approach. They're getting well. And what I find is the biggest diagnosis, if you will, the biggest etiology for the people I see with physical complaints is that their precious, loving heart has never been acknowledged by themselves or other people. Your subconscious mind can use your body biology to get your attention that something needs attention. That's just real. Yeah. And so my work is to keep asking questions until it's clear to me, or I understand enough, A, to find out what needs attention, and B, what's in the way of them changing it themselves, which most of us do all the time. The mechanism is the biology I talked about.
Harvey, can people work that out? Can people listen to themselves to find the answers, or do they need to do it through a form of hypnosis?
It doesn't have to be hypnosis. There's lots of ways to do it. However, when it doesn't work spontaneously, generally you need some help. Yeah. And the help might come from a mental health person, it might come from a priest, it might come from a dream, it depends. what I find, there's a variety of things in the way. One of the common ones is inability to adequately express anger, and that's because people have grown up with no models, useful models of, mom was a volcano, dad hid behind the newspaper. When you can't be angry, you're tying your subconscious mind's hands, because anger is a survival emotion. You got to be able to get angry. The issue is no violence. In this culture, we merge anger and violence all the time.
I suppose intelligence, whether it be emotional intelligence or academic intelligence, is something that we are taught, I suppose, in a lot of respects, wouldn't you say?
Well, again, intelligence is an interesting thing. I often tell people numb and dumb is much easier if you want to get through life. The people I see, by and large, are very intelligent people, and they're very sensitive people, and that's why they suffer so much, both of those things. But they've gotten into a place where they cannot by themselves solve this, and they've been to every form of therapy, on every kind of medication you can imagine, but the issue is everyone's looking for a fragmented disease. So physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social aspects of life, we made those up so we could talk about them. Inside of you there's a biology, and those distinctions are not real. Anything that affects any part of you is affecting all of you biologically all the time through this gene expression stuff. And we've built a healthcare system that thinks those distinctions are real, and it's driving everybody mad. That's pretty straightforward, simple stuff when you think about it.
Well, it's so much of people wanting to control each other, society trying to control how we are.
Right.
And,
well, that's for commercial intent.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
In this country.
Yeah. But we don't understand the personal power that we have, and we've all. Let's look at myself, for example. My breast cancer came, and my spirit was hopping up and down at me to saying, come on, Tess, take notice, take notice. Oh, for goodness sake, when are you going to take notice? And it wasn't until the cancer stopped me in my tracks, and I was able to reflect upon my life and say, okay, I've got to make some serious changes here.
And that worked for you.
And it worked.
Right. It's interesting. We know that if you take a bunch of women with breast cancer and measure their T-cell activity. T-cell is the cellular part of the immune system that fights viruses and cancer. Those T-cells are often not active, and now we have ways to see what genes are turned on. And if you look at the gene that makes something called interleukin-2, it's the fertilizer or the fuel, if you will, for the T lymphocyte. And if you take those women and teach them just simple relaxation techniques, go to the beach, lie in the sun, smile, the interleukin-2
I like all those things.
Yeah, the interleukin-2 gene turns on, the T lymphocytes get more active, and they fight their own cancers better. That science is old, actually, now. But again, I want to really focus on this idea that physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social distinctions are not real inside of us. You have a biology. Anything affecting any part of you is affecting all of that biology all the time. And in a given individual, you have to try to tease out what are the most powerful things for that person. And, once you do that and you begin to treat people in a loving, compassionate way and teach them some tools, which in my case is hypnosis, but there are other tools, then what happens is they change their switches and the healing happens. And again, the switch stuff is just the mechanism. How you go about it, it might be a smile, it might be love. Every human interaction helps or hurts inner safety for both parties. There's no neutrality.
No, I think what we're trying to do within Mind and Body is, when people can't listen to their own voice, Harvey, is put them in a positive thought process.
Makes sense.
to get them away from the negative thinking and the thinking that they can't do things, and the impact that their present state of mind is in, so that we can help redirect them until they can hear their own voice.
I have a very wise patient, a young woman who's an old soul, who said to me 2 days ago, constant negativity comes from people who don't feel they're being heard.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
And when someone is constantly telling someone else what to do, they need to look and see what that means in their own lives.
Yeah. Well, everything is a reflection of ourselves, isn't it?
Right.
You know, what we see in somebody else.
Yeah, we're amazing. I love Rachel Naomi Remen. Have you heard of her?
Yes, I read her book,
Right.
Kitchen Wisdom, Kitchen Top.
Yeah, Kitchen Table wasn't right. Yeah. She has 3 guidelines for life. I really like them. Number 1 is notice. You know, pay attention, be there. Number 2, be amazed. And number 3, share.
That's what we're doing.
I know, it's perfect for exactly what you're doing.
Sharing is caring.
It's amazing. But you have to remember that my training is not mental health training. It's as a cardiologist, which makes perfect sense because all this stuff is about the heart anyway. And so I like knowing the biology, the mechanisms. It's one of the reasons I went into medicine. But those are just mechanisms. How it works in a given individual comes through how we relate and what tools we teach that individual to use. And then they do it. I watch people who've had seizures that are unexplained, pains that are unexplained, fibromyalgia. This is a perfect example. No test is positive, and no treatment specifically works. But if you look at, I've come up with a kind of a 7-part framework of how people develop fibromyalgia, and it's so different in every given person that the fact there could be a pill just makes no sense whatsoever.
No.
So there's all kinds of wonderful biology about that, but you need to take the time in a given individual to help them explore enough. And I guess my professional mantra is to keep asking questions until I understand enough to help the patient understand.
Which is fantastic.
And it works.
Yeah,
it works.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's great fun.
Absolutely fascinating. Really is. I think that Harvey, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to wrap this up now, I think. But it would be lovely if you would come back again and talk to us. I know that might be difficult because of the time difference and everything else.
It's not difficult at all. It would be a great pleasure. I don't know if Jan mentioned to you, but my sister-in-law died last July. Stage 4 lung cancer, diagnosed 2008 with a very real 4-month prognosis. She just died 6 years later. Very active until 3 weeks before, never took pain medicine, never needed it. But after she died, my brother, who had lived the last 6 years, stayed alive to take care of her, decided that he didn't need to suffer anymore, and he asked if I'd come be with him. So in December, I was with him for 11 days.
Right.
And I'm just kind of catching up and recovering from that whole thing because it was exhausting. And he was a wonderful man. He was my go-to guy. And but I've done what I invite my patients to do, and that is I've given myself space to deal with all of this, and I'm now catching up on those months of of interlude, if you will.
Fair enough. I think that would be nice actually if we could get you and Jan on at the same time. I think that would be quite compelling, wouldn't it, Tessa?
She's one of my.
Jan wasn't sure she'd get a word in edgeways.
Probably wouldn't.
Well, thank you so much.
I have to share with you one brief story.
Sure.
A moth, M-O-T-H, goes into a podiatrist's office and says, my left wing is not flapping, my right antenna is not picking up anything, my left hind leg is stiff in the cold. Help me. And the podiatrist said, I'm a podiatrist. Well, how am I going to help you? And furthermore, why did you come into my office? And the moth says, oh, your light was on.
Very good. Absolutely brilliant. Well, on that note, I think we'll end this this live broadcast. Harvey, thank you so much for taking part. Really appreciate it. Your expertise was fascinating, actually. And like I say, it'd be great to have you back on this again. So no doubt Tessa will be in touch and knocking on your digital door, so to speak, to ask you to come on and do this again. Harvey, could you do you have a website that you could share with us for people that are going to watch this?
It's been slightly neglected over the past 8 months, but it's connectedhealinginstitute.com.
Wonderful. And are you on Twitter if people want to engage with you?
No, I don't Twitter.
No.
I don't Facebook. I don't even text.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
The work has been so intense that I really need space and time to introspect.
Understood.
So I've given myself that space and time by avoiding those technologies.
Sure. Well, you might not Facebook and you might not tweet, but you do Google Hangout on Air, which is fantastic. So thank you so much. And Tessa Guy from In Mind In Body. That's www.inmindinbody.com, and you can follow Tessa on Twitter at Guy Tessa. Thank you so much, Tessa, for taking part as well. And I think this has been really good, hasn't it? Isn't it great that we can get these experts on and talk like this? It's fantastic.
Absolutely fantastic. Harvey, Paul, we'll turn off, but Harvey and I will still be able to speak for a moment.
You will, yes. I'll when I stop the broadcast, you guys will be able to carry on, no problem at all. So I'll end the broadcast now. Both of you, thanks very much.
Thank you. Paul.